So tell me about any wins or shout outs you had yesterday or where you saw our team values exhibited. We're going to do 3 and then we're going to turn it over to Nikki.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. When would be, I had a double listing presentation yesterday. Wes, your camera's freaking out.
I'm going to turn off my video. Go ahead.
Double listing presentation yesterday. Think it went very well. I'm doing the comparative analysis right now for both properties for mom and son. And if they like what they see, they're going to list.
Awesome. Great job. Okay. Also, give me 2 more wins, shout outs, or research team values exhibited yesterday.
I'm Jana. Good morning. So I would just say the prospecting day across the board is great. I mean, that was pretty cool to have just compadres across the country. So that was exciting. And Fred, of course, did such a great job. So I appreciate that. And that was helpful. I had some great conversations yesterday. So.
Very cool. Okay, 1 more. Preston, wins, shout outs, or research team values exhibited yesterday?
All right, there we go. Yeah, I want to shout out Zach Davis for always being a team player and helping out whenever needed. And he's just showing a lot of teamwork. So shout out to Zach.
Good job, Zach. He's on the call here too. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki now. Nikki is going to talk about kind of perspective and going into this market. So Nikki, tell us about yourself before you get started, then I'll let you do it. And you can share your screen if you want to. Okay.
I don't need to share my screen.
You've got plenty of energy.
Trust me, if you saw no, we're good. I thought I was going to be the one with the accent today, but apparently you all have the accent.
This is Tennessee.
You guys say y'all? I don't know. Is that a Tennessee thing or a Texas thing?
Absolutely.
You'll have the accent. Doesn't quite fit with Brit. My name is Nikki Klein. I am an agent in Boca Raton, Florida. It's beautiful out here today. It's like in the 80s. I don't know what it's like. What's the weather like in Tennessee right now? Chilly-ish?
Yeah.
40s. I'm like sweating over here, but I won't bring that up again. So I run a team. I have 7 agents on my team. I recently moved over to Place, and what should I tell you? I got my license about 8 years ago. I hit the ground running. Actually, I think I made $3,000 in my first year of real estate, working my butt off and didn't quit. I was like hustling. You know what, honestly, I did a lot of rentals in my first year. And my husband at the time was like, what are you doing? You're like working 365 days and you're bringing in $3,000 a year. It might be why we're not married now, but no, that's not a story. But so since then, basically what I've done is every year I followed up with the people who had the rentals, and then, you know, my volume just increased and increased. And then as an individual agent, last year I did 40 million, and I had 1 agent on my team. And this year we've just kind of expanded. So I have about 6 agents on my team, and we're just recently joined Place. So that's really exciting. And I want to talk to you guys today about changing the narrative. So it's not just going to be about a conversation about the specific market, but what you need to do for your mindset in this market, because it can be really challenging, especially with the shift. And, you know, it was like last year you could throw contracts and they would stick at everything. And then now you actually have to know what you're doing, right? You have to make the calls and you have to be productive and move yourself forward. So I want to talk to you guys about changing the narrative. And it's really interesting because about a month ago, I'm going to give you an example of a story of what happened with me. A month ago, I decided that I wanted to take some time away from the business. I had a few days, I didn't have my kids. And so it was a Wednesday and I said, I'm going to Guatemala because they had seats available. So I booked a ticket and I went Wednesday night. I flew to Guatemala, probably should have checked to see if it was a safe place to go. Didn't do that, ended up in Guatemala. It was actually incredible. I had a great experience. But while I was there, I wanted to do some like really exciting activities because it's not every day you get to go and see volcanoes and all different types of things. So I decided that I was going to sign up for this activity and I was going to climb a volcano and stay the night at the top of the volcano. And they have an active one across the way where you can watch it erupt at night. How cool is that? So I sign up for this thing. I go on TripAdvisor. They have this whole package. And it's also really inexpensive in Guatemala. So I was super excited. And I arrive at the bus. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning and there's 10 of us. And they're all like these young backpackers. And I'm not, but I was like, we're going to do this together and we're going to get there. And their stories were, they're from Europe and they've been backpacking for months. And this is just one of the activities they wanted to do. So we get to the base camp and it took about 2 hours to get to the base camp. And we're preparing. I mean, we're putting on, they're like, you need to wear 2 pairs of pants. You need to get one of those sticks. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, these people have been preparing for months for this. And I'm just like, oh, that looks like such a fun excursion. I'm going to go and go on this like excessive hike to, anyway, but we did it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I get myself ready. They tell me it's going to be freezing cold. So you need hats, gloves, you need like the little light things so that, because it's pitch black and you're sleeping in a tent with just a sleeping bag and it's freezing cold. So we start ascending this volcano. And as I'm going up the volcano, I'm thinking to the altitude difference I'm in Florida, it's flat. So the difference in the altitude is intense, right? Like it's hard to breathe when you have a difference in altitude. And so we're going like, we're climbing and like 10 minutes in, I'm like, and they're all going, like, you just go, I'll catch up to you. These youngins are like, they're like going, they're plowing up this volcano and it's really sandy. So it's hard to get your footing. I did have hiking shoes, thank goodness. But I had to take my breath and there were 10 of us that started and, 20 minutes in, one of the guys was like, I'm out, right? I'm not doing it. So it ended up being 9 of us. And 2 hours into this hike, I'm like, the whole time up in my head, I'm like, I hate this. Why did I agree to this? It's just a volcano. I could watch it on National Geographic. What was I thinking? And so these are the thoughts going through my mind the whole time I'm climbing up this volcano. And then, we hit the 4th hour and I'm like, well, I can't go back now because they said we only have 2 hours left. And I'm like, only 2 hours, but we've just done 4 hours. So I had to like weigh it in my mind. Do I quit, which would be so lovely? Or do I just keep working on these blisters? And like, how bad can it really get? And I'm in so much pain right now. And it's like that feeling of just complete exhaustion and you just want to quit. And I ended up getting to this top of this volcano. We all came together. It was like high fives. You see you're in the clouds, like literally in the clouds. You're seeing these volcanoes from a distance. You see all these pastures with all these animals and it's incredible and beautiful. And then I turn to my right as we're at the top and I see number 10, the guy that quit. He's on a horse. He's on a horse. Nobody told me I could take a horse. Right? Like we are socially conditioned in this life to believe that when you want to climb to the top of a volcano or get to the top or be successful, you have to suffer. But I feel like I would have been super excited to be on a horse and I would have had a totally different perspective, right? Like I would have been on the horse, I would have seen the pastures, I would have seen the flowers, I would have been really happy and I wouldn't have gotten blisters. like just my own personal perspective. So what I really want you to like consider is like, what are the activities that you guys are doing where you feel like you're suffering and there's another way to do it? Okay. And I can give you an example. Like for me, I don't know if Wes is going to like this, but cold calling, I don't prefer to cold call. I built my business through Facebook groups. So what I did was I have my Mets, I have events, I have meetings, I have networking groups that I've created so that I don't have to do my prospecting a specific way that we think we're supposed to do it, right? There are ways that you could be doing things in a way that resonates with you and not because somebody else is doing it a certain way. There are so many different ways that you can enjoy what you're doing. If you're not enjoying it, what's the point? Honestly, I truly believe like we're here, we're on earth, we have one life to experience, we should be enjoying what we're doing. So change the way that you're doing it. If you're not enjoying it, there are ways that you can be productive and look at it from a different standpoint. And I want to talk to you about the way that we think and fear and negativity, because it actually takes 17 seconds for you to spiral in your thoughts. So when you have a negative thought, and I was watching my son do this the other night, actually, he was talking about something. He's like, I don't know what to have for dinner. And then it went into, you could see it happening. And I want you to watch this on people who start being negative, right? I don't know what to have for dinner. I'm going to have to take it into my room. I have so much homework. I've missed the last 3 days of school because I was doing debate club. I have all this work to catch up. Do you see what happens when you have a negative thought? It just like goes from one, it's like glue or like gum. It goes from one to the next, like a tree. It's like weeds, right? Like you can find weeds everywhere. They grow. They grow in pavement. They grow in places that you didn't even know you had to like take them out of. But when you're trying to grow a plant like an orchid, you have to take time and care and energy into having it blossom and bloom. And I think that it's really important for us to recognize that when we're having these negative thoughts, we need to take a step away. And Mel Robbins actually has a really great exercise. She talks about the 5-second rule, that when you start having those spiraling thoughts, count backwards by 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because what that does is it takes the thoughts that you're having from the back of your mind and brings it into the present, into your prefrontal cortex, right? So you're staying present. And that's what we want to try and do. We get to control the way that we think, okay? We get to say, okay, I'm observing those negative thoughts that I'm having and I'm shifting them into the now. I know that they're stories and I can keep going. And it's your egoic mind is creating these stories to protect you because it's a comfort. I could go really deep into this, but I don't think we have enough time. But basically, the bottom line is you want to make sure that you are staying as present as possible. That is how you create, not thinking about future stories and not thinking about past stories. It's staying exactly where you are and focusing on the things that are important right now. And
Nikki,
also, yes.
Nikki, tell me how you went from that first year where you did $3,000, because it'd be really easy to go into a negative perspective then.
Oh, yeah.
And then shifted it to your second year. Tell us about that.
40 million. I think that it's all, this business, in case you haven't noticed, is all about momentum, right? It's like, if you get what, at Keller Williams, they talk about what you focus on expands, right? It's 100% accurate. If I wanted to focus on the negative and complaining about like, oh, it's just rentals. It's just all these people, they're like, it's such a small price point. I'm not getting paid anything. Why am I even bothering doing this? Or I could shift my perspective into, I am so blessed that I get to be able to put somebody into a temporary situation for housing, and they're going to be purchasing something next year. And I get to follow up with them and keep in touch with them and see like how they're growing. Not just, what we do is so much more than real estate. Right? Like what we do is we literally change lives. And if you can think of it in that perspective, if you can look at it as like, these people are human beings, and it's one of the most important things. You spend most of your time at home, right? Like your home is your comfort. So whether it's a rental or whether it's something that they're purchasing, it's their home. That was kind of what kept me going during those times. It was knowing that I was helping people, and I knew that in the future they would be purchasing something. And I would say to them that this is like, I'm going to be following up with you in 9 months to make sure that that you have all your ducks in a row, your lease is ending, and I want to see you buying something. So it's really a matter of momentum in this business, keeping up with your clients, touching them, making sure you're making notes in the database, because you want to remember like that it was Johnny's birthday, and how was that baseball party that you put on for him 6 months ago. Your clients are going to be so shocked that you know all of this information about them that you may not have remembered if you're not making those notes. Your CRM is truly gold. It's a gold mine, but you just have to use it. If you're using it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be like getting those deals done. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hopefully it answered it. But also going back to the mindset thing, I know, Wes, you really want me to talk about the business, but for me, the reality is that if your mind isn't where it needs to be, you don't have a business. Like literally, if you're allowing negativity and thoughts that aren't serving you and your business to take over your mind, body, and soul, you're not going to be able to break through. So I really like to talk about real examples to help people kind of focus and become aware of. It's all about awareness. It's like recognizing that the negative thoughts that you're having, you're creating those stories, because Wes isn't having the same thought process that I am, right? Kat's not having those thoughts. I'm having those thoughts. I'm making those stories up. Do you guys realize, like, do you recognize that? Like, we create our own reality. It's really fascinating when you really like dig into it. You know, there's an interesting story that Simon Sinek talks about. He wrote Start With Why and Lead As You Last. He's an incredible. If you don't know him, I highly recommend you.
Infinite Game.
Exactly, Infinite Games. So he talks about mindset all the time. And one of the things that really impacted me that he talked about was he was watching the Olympians being interviewed. I don't know if you guys have heard this story, but it's really powerful. And the journalist kept asking him, the athletes, are you nervous? And they were like, well, no, I'm excited. Are you sure you're not nervous? Like, how are you not nervous? And they were like, no, I'm really excited. So what the athletes have done is they've interpreted their body stimulus not as nerves, but as excitement. Because if you really think about the physical effects of excitement and nervousness, clammy hands, right? Your heart starts racing. You're visualizing your future. Like maybe your armpits are sweating. So if you can change your mindset when you get nervous, maybe you're going on a listing appointment, or maybe you're calling somebody and you're like super nervous. How powerful is it to think like, oh, these are the same reactions that I get when I'm excited? And you just can shift your mindset just like that. Those are the sorts of things that I want you guys to think about when you're in this business. Maybe you're newer, maybe you haven't done a listing appointment for a long time. Shifting your perspective from feeling like you're super nervous to being really excited. It's like flying on a plane and you have like turbulence, right? You can say to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Or you can be like, oh, this is exciting. Like, you know, it's like, I want you to take, I could have said when I came, I'm going to be speaking to a whole bunch of agents I've never met, most of them, and I am so nervous. Or I could say to myself, why I'm excited. I'm excited because I get to talk to you and tell you my perspective. And maybe you will be able to self-lead from some little nuggets that I talked to you about, right? It's so, our minds are so powerful. I just want you guys to get into them so that you can recognize When you're having thoughts, they are your thoughts and your stories, and you get to have that dialogue with yourself. You get to change the way that you're thinking. You get to change the perspective. Does anyone have any questions before?
What are some things you go through to get your mindset in the right mode after you may have had a listing canceled on you? I'm sure that never happens to you or anything of that nature.
Sure, it happens to me. I get listings canceled. I had a $2 million buyer who I showed houses to for a really long time, and he ended up not buying with me. He went straight to the listing agent. Like and that was recent. And it used to really bother me. Like I would be sitting in it. I would be thinking about all the things how much money I've lost and how much time I spent. And now I've shifted my whole mindset to like, I'm so grateful that I got the experience to go to these homes and I got to see new inventory. And like, there is somebody else out there. And it just I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason, which I know is so cliched, but I truly believe that our path is already written out for us, and we can either choose to fight it and have all the reasons why we're not, why we're fighting against what's happening to us, or we can just accept. And when you accept, you have freedom because you're not fighting against anything. It's like being in a rowboat, right? And you're like pushing against the current, or you can just let the oars drop and go with the current. And so I choose to go with the current instead of like rowing against it. And your life becomes so much freer because honestly, there's nothing I can do. Like he went, okay, so that's what he chose to do. I know that I did everything in my power that I could have done to make it a successful, but sometimes you have people who have a different perspective and he has his stories in his mind. I'm never going to know what the stories in his mind are, even if I had like an in-depth conversation with him, because that's his life and his stories. We all have stories based on our childhood, right? Like somebody may be afraid of having a bee sting them because they were stung by bees as a child. That's not going to impact me because that's not my story. It's the same for anything. It's the same for everything in life. We all come from our own perspective based on our history. So how are we going to use that information to move us forward? It's kind of unraveling those stories so that you figure out like, who am I without those stories? How can I move forward and not let it impact me? Because it's going to impact me for a different reason that it impacts you. This is really deep. Is this okay? Okay. Okay.
Good stuff.
So yeah, that's kind of, it's like there's this story about buffalo. You guys have buffalo in Tennessee, right? So I don't want to butcher this because I don't think we have many buffalo in Florida. We have alligators. But there's this story about in Colorado, there's this like pasture and there are buffalo there and there are cows. And it's like one of the only pastures with buffalo and cows together. Does that sound right to you? Okay. So what happens is when there's a storm, like, so there's these Rockies and then there's a flat pasture and Yellowstone. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I don't know where that is. Is that bad? Okay. I'm from England. That's always my excuse. I'm from England. Okay. So there are these buffalo and these cows who share this pasture together. And whenever the storms come, right? These storms, they come from the west and they go east. And these cows, they feel the storm coming. And what do? They run away from the storms, right? They run away. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you guys know about cows. They're not super fast. Not the most intelligent thing to do, right? Is to run away from the storm. Because you know what that ends up doing? It ends up prolonging the pain and the suffering. The storm will come, they're running away from it. And then finally it catches up with them and they're still trying to run, but the storm goes through and they're sitting there in this pain and in this suffering. And you know who else does that? Human beings. This is what we do. We create problems and then we run away from them in the complete opposite direction. Isn't that wild? Isn't that ridiculous? Kind of stupid, right? Like we're prolonging the inevitable to try and avoid things and circumstances that we have created ourselves. Makes no sense. Well, the buffalo, they feel the storm coming along. It's coming in from the west. Do you know what the buffalo do? They charge towards the storm. They charge towards it and they run through it so that they can minimize the pain, right? They minimize the pain and they minimize the frustration. And basically, it's the exact same storm. It's how they have chosen to respond to it. So I want you guys to think about storms that are like, we do this professionally, we do it financially with health, we do it every single aspect of our life, we have storms. So the question is, how are you responding to the storms in your life? Are you running away from them because they're going to hit you anyway? It's life. Life comes with storms. Or are you going to run towards it, hit it head on, and get through it? So these are the things that I really want you guys to consider when you're going through your storms and how you're going to respond to them, how you're going to react to them, because it really does impact. Like we draw them out as human beings, we draw them out, and there are easier ways. We have to go through them anyway, so we might as well hit them face on. Instead of being afraid, just be strong, charge at it. So those are my kind of my mindset stories and feelings for what we're going through in this market, right? Like, it's a tough market. If we want to be in real estate, we got to figure out a way to get through it. So either you can run away. It's like, okay, how many people are so terrified to make phone calls to their sphere because they haven't spoken to them for 4 years? What if you changed the script and you said to that person in the database, you know, it's been 4 years. I was waiting for you to call me. You've probably been waiting for me to call you. I've been thinking about it. I don't know what's taking either of us so long, but I want to check in with you and see if you're okay. Doesn't that, like, they could have called us too. We're all accountable. So don't be afraid. Like, just look at it from a totally different perspective. Jump on the phone, call your sphere, just check in with them. Because we get afraid. We think, oh my gosh, they're going to wonder why I haven't called them. Now it's been too long. It's been 4 years. I don't even know what's going on. I haven't been in their life. And they probably hate me because no, they also have their own life, right? They have their own life. They have things going on. They're probably thinking the exact same thing. I can't call them because, you know, they're so busy. They're selling so many homes. I don't want to bother them. I don't want them to think that I'm like, what am I going to call them about? So you have to understand, if you look at it from the perspective of the person that you're calling, in addition to how you're feeling, everyone feels the same way. We're all human. We all have the same feelings. So really try and conquer that fear of picking up the phone and calling people you actually already know that probably want to hear from you, by the way. They're just afraid to call you as much as you're afraid to call them. And bring it, I'm very transparent when I talk to people, in case you haven't noticed. It's very much a matter of like, hey guys, we haven't spoken to each other. Just make it's a fact. You don't have to sugarcoat or be like, I'm really embarrassed. I haven't spoken to you for so long. And I honestly was like, because the time kept going, I thought maybe like, what, am I never going to speak to this person again? And I thought you didn't want to call me and I didn't want to call you, but let's chat. How are you? What's happening? Tell me about your life. How's Sally? What's going on with her? Because hopefully you have your notes in your database from the 4 years ago that you spoke to her, right? But, I guess my ultimate wish for you and my message is that I want you guys to change the narrative with how everything works in your life, not just in business, but in your personal life too, and everything that you put your mind to. I think it's really important to look at different perspectives, because that your perspective is yours from how everything that you know. But, I don't know things from Wes's perspective, right? Because I didn't grow up the same way that he did. And all of you guys, you all have different stories. So just keep an open mind and an open heart. And I guess that's my message for you today.
Questions, comments for Nikki?
Yeah, thank you so much. My sister lives in Boca Raton. She just moved back from London, so.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, I would say, how do you, so the kind of having, I guess, headspace from, that 3,000 to whatever, the 40 million, you just had to expand your mindset, both like leading people, but
Mhm.
also just like, okay, now this is a big monster. Like there's just a whole lot of people that you're involved in at the same time. So what are some ways that you've kind of created some, I guess, boundaries to be able to just have a little bit of a life?
Oh, yes, I need to talk to you guys about boundaries. Seriously. You need to literally not answer your phone after like 6 or 7 o'clock, because I'm telling you, it's like when we start in real estate and we get so entrenched in it and we're so passionate about it and we just want our client to know we're doing a really good job. They know you're doing a good job. And they also like are human beings as well, and will recognize that if you don't answer your phone at 6 o'clock, it's probably because you have a life outside of real estate. There are no emergencies after 6, like even 6 o'clock is, say you want to do 7 if you're like baby steps, right? Just don't answer your phone and let people know, like have on your voicemail. You have to set the standard and expectation to your clients and to who people you're working with that after X amount of time, you will hear from me tomorrow morning, first thing. And you have to be okay with it, because your client will be okay with it when you set boundaries. They want boundaries. Like I want you to think about like kids in kindergarten, right? Like the teachers set boundaries. You can do this, don't do that, sit here. People want to be told what to do, right? With boundaries. So it's really important that you tell your clients, listen, I'm yours, you're mine. I'm going to do the best possible job for you. I feel like, we are a unit, we are a team. I don't answer my phone after 6 o'clock. Doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. I'm just off the clock. Otherwise, I won't be able to recharge and reset and be my best self for you. So we will talk again tomorrow morning at 8:30. But it's really important that you set those boundaries. I did that too late in my career. And if you guys are on your phone instead of spending time with your loved ones, that you can't get the time back. Just remember, you can always make more money. You can never get your time back. So it's really important that you set those boundaries with your clients, that after 6 o'clock, we'll be in touch with you tomorrow morning, first thing. And they're going to understand. Like there are no emergencies in real estate. You guys have to realize that. And what you'll find is the more successful agents that you see in the business, the bigger their boundaries are.
Mhm.
Really, like I want you to set those boundaries.
Great share, Nikki. What other questions or comments?
Hey, Nikki, I had a question. Because you apologize to Wes for saying it, but how you were saying that you didn't prefer cold calling. And I actually like calling like that. And I agree with you but the idea of building a networking group and having to talk to people on social media terrifies me. And I'd probably rather jump off this building. So I love that you said that.
There you go.
But I guess what I'd love for the agents to hear is the amount of work that you still had to put into. It's not like you just made a couple of social media posts
sure.
and built this huge business. We still have to, and would you mind talking briefly about that process and how much work and how much time and energy you had to put into it? We can't just go pick something better, we have to also work at it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It doesn't matter what you do in life, you're going to have to put the work into it if you want to be successful. And so I would much rather you focus on the things that bring you joy. Like, is it Steve? Okay, Steve likes to cold call. I would rather stick forks in my eye. Honestly, I have no interest in cold calling people. I love building community. What do you love to do? Focus on those things, because I think sometimes in this business, it's so easy to see people who are on stage or who are doing, and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're being so successful. But you have to understand that people that are doing things at a high level are following the things that bring them joy. not following the things that they feel like they have to do every day in order, like, no, that's not, you're not going to be successful if you do that. You have to do the things that you're passionate about. Otherwise you're going to fail. That's my personal feeling about it is, and it did take me a really long time to build. It's not like I just kind of went online and was like, hey, join my group and sell your house with me. No, did not work like that. It was much more, I started very small. I actually have 26,000 people in my Facebook group now, local community members, that I ended up growing through consistency and through passion and through wanting to connect people. So if you're not passionate about, for example, building a Facebook group, don't even try doing it. If it's going to give you anxiety, it's not worth it. Do the things, figure out what you like to do. Do you like doing open houses? Do you like cold calling? Maybe you want to call for sale by owner and expireds. Maybe you want to call your sphere. Maybe you want to create a face. There are so many different ways that you can prospect. Can I tell you that I got my first ever listing 7 years ago in a Starbucks? I was sitting, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was eating a salad, and there was this group of older gentlemen. I guess they were having their club in the morning, having their Starbucks. And I was sitting eating my salad, and one of them came up to me and said, "What are you doing eating a salad at 8 o'clock in the morning?" And I said, "I am so busy. I just barely have time to eat lunch." And what is the response to that? "You're so big. What do you do?" Right? So I said, "Well, I sell real estate." And he said, "You're kidding." And I was like, "I'm not." And I had never sold a house, by the way. And he said, "My wife and I," he goes, "This is a sign." And I said, "Yes, it totally is a sign. What do you need?" And he said, "My wife and I have investment properties, and we didn't know how to look for a realtor. And so will you come to my house and tell me what you think, what I need to do next?" And I was like, so nervous. I was like, "Yes, I'll be there at 4 o'clock. And I'm calling everyone, like, how do you do this? How do you do how do you go to someone's house? What do you say? What do you look for?" I was like, actually, as Simon Sinek said, I was so excited. I could not wait. I wasn't nervous at all. But seriously, it's one of those things that how you connect with people and how you present yourself is how people will be attracted to you. So what I want you to take from that is you can get listings, you can get buyers from anywhere, from Starbucks. Just put yourself out there, right? Just talk to people. If you don't like talking to people, figure out something that you do like to do, right? If you really don't like talking to people, maybe real estate's not the best business for you, truthfully. But my point is that if you want to get leads, there are a million different ways to do it. I got my first listing at Starbucks. He ended up referring me to multiple different people. I think I sold like 6 properties for him. You can find leads anywhere. Just get out of your head. Really, just talk to people like you're talking to people, like you want to just get to know them, and don't see everyone as a meal ticket. That's one thing that I think shifted for me. When you change your mindset from trying to make money off of people to how can I help you, everything changes. Your whole life will change. If you truly come from service, your entire life will change. Hopefully that answered the question a little bit.
That's great. Nikki, I'm going to invite you, if you will help us out, to talk about your social media and stuff at one point later on, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you for being on with us today. I'm going to see you in Bill Howe.
Of course, I'll be at Bill Howe.
Great. We'll see you there. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Klein.